My name is Jeanette Santos Aslan, and I am in the board of the Broward County Hispanic Bar Association. And today I have the distinct pleasure of interviewing one of our beloved Hispanic judges, Judge Kathleen McCarthy. Judge McCarthy has been selected as the Judge of the Month for the month of June 2021. Congratulations, and thank you for joining us, Judge McCarthy.
Thank you so much, Jeanette. It's a pleasure.
Wonderful. Let's get started in getting to know you a little bit more. Why don't you tell us about your background and your family upbringing?
Okay, sure. My father is an Irish American, and my mother is from Madrid. And they met over in Spain in the late 50s. At that time was an officer with the JAG, and he met my mother. They fell in love. I'm number 5 out of 6 kids. I consider my family to be multicultural. My family, we've lived in Spain, France, Puerto Rico, here in the United States, New Jersey, and Kentucky. I consider myself a Floridian because I've been here since I'm 9. But wonderful, wonderful childhood, fantastic family.
What was it like growing up in such a fusion of cultures, if you will, the Irish American father and the Spanish mother?
Okay, it was quite enjoyable for me. My father was trilingual. He spoke French and Spanish. And my grandmother moved from Europe when I was about 3 years old, and she didn't speak any English. So we would hear French music, we would hear Spanish music. My father had a great love of Spain. And my friends would love to come over too, because my family was so interesting.
Out of the 3 languages you mentioned, was there one that was predominant in the household?
It would be probably a mixture of Spanish and French. My father would speak French to my mom, and she would speak Spanish to him.
Did you carry that tradition forward with the languages in your household now?
I do, and I've made up my own language. It's kind of a mixture. It has some English words, French, and Spanish. And also my son is Spanish as well, and his family from different parts, so even more multicultural.
So it's the McCarthy household version of the
yes,
3 languages.
Keeping the tradition alive, right. And then my mom's always over at my house, or I'm with her, and my brothers and sisters. So the big family, we're still very close, and that's so important.
What are some of the things that you do to keep those traditions alive?
Well, one thing for sure is when it comes to my birthday, I usually have my mom will make gazpacho or a paella. So I like a lot of the food from Spain, and I'm also a huge Salvador Dali fan. So there's a lot of artwork and books, and I've taken my son to the museum. And soon I hope to take him over to Madrid. I want him to see El Prado, which is one of my favorite museums. And I really want to introduce him to that culture. So that's my next big plan. But here in Florida, it's so multicultural, that he's exposed to many different things.
And speaking of South Florida, can you tell us a little bit more about your connection to South Florida?
Okay. So I moved here when I was 9. I grew up in Hollywood, Florida. I went to Little Flower Grade School, Madonna Academy. And then I went to South Broward, my first time in public school for 11th and 12th grade. So that was quite a transition. I attended undergrad at FIU in Miami. I attended Barry University, where I received my master's, as well as law school here in South Florida.
And speaking of law school, how did your interest in the law first begin?
Okay, so initially I was working in the mental health field, and my family had a tragedy. My little brother was killed, and he was getting ready to go to Georgetown Law School, which was my father's alma mater, and he's the baby of the family. So we were so devastated, and it was one of those moments where I just decided I was going to go to law school. And I applied, and I talked to my mom and dad. I said, hey guys, I want to go to law school, and maybe I could move back in with you. And they were really, really happy. It was a really great decision for the whole family, and it helped change the narrative.
What do you mean by changing the narrative?
We were so devastated. It was beyond belief so now it was something more positive to think of. And also I felt like I was doing it in my little brother's memory. And also I really wanted to make my mom and dad proud. So it was just something for hope.
And from that hopeful decision of going to law school, how were your law school years?
In law school, I was usually the quiet one that would sit in the back of law school, but I made many, many friends in law school, and I also took the opportunity to study abroad. So with Tulane Law School, I was able to study in the Greek islands. I studied maritime law. I went over to Germany. I went to Humboldt University, studied arbitration, negotiation, and mediation. So that's how I was in law school. I took advantage of whatever educational opportunity I could have, but quiet.
And after law school, where did your legal career take you?
After law school, my first position, I was working with Holy Cross Hospital. I was an independent contractor. That's when HIPAA had come into effect. So I was adding addendums to all those contracts. I also worked with their institutional review board, which deals with cancer studies at the hospital. So that was my first foray into my legal profession.
And after having that experience, where did you go next?
So then after that, I ended up, I don't know how this happened, but I ended up meeting up with a friend who needed some help covering cases in dependency in the criminal court. So that was my first real experience being in the courtroom. And for me, that was much more enjoyable than sitting behind a computer and being in an office all day. I loved it. The hustle and bustle. Yeah.
After getting that experience, a taste of the courtroom, where did that lead you next?
So I was in private practice for quite a few years, and then regional counsel was formed. And it was essentially for cases that the PD couldn't take. That would go to regional counsel, as well as dependency, Marchman Act, adult protective service cases. And so I really became well honed with social service cases. I did that for 10 years.
10 years, you must have a lot of stories in those 10 years. Is there a takeaway from public service in that aspect that you can share with those watching this video?
Oh, I love doing public service. I myself, not a big fan of billable hours. I like to help people regardless of whether they have the ability to pay. I also was exposed to many different judges, general magistrates, the bailiffs, the clerks. I, felt like I had friends on every floor of the courtroom. I really enjoy it.
And from those 10 plus years of public service work, how do you end on the bench? Tell us about that journey.
So it was back in 2016, and it was just one of those moments where I just had an epiphany. And another time I called my mom and I said, "Hey mom," I said, I want to run, I want to become a judge. And I took a big chance, and it was one of the most exciting experiences of my life. It was beyond anything I would have ever comprehended or expected. But at the same time, very exhilarating, and just fantastic experience. Exhausting though.
You mentioned your mother. Is there anything that you can tell us about the role that your mother has played in your career and in the woman that you are today?
Okay, well, for both of my parents, my father sadly passed away, but he still is a huge influence. My parents have given us unconditional love. They've always pushed me to get my education, and it's a safe place. I can go to them if I have a problem or to talk to them. They're extremely kind people, hardworking people, fun, and encouraging, the greatest cheerleaders you could ever imagine.
And now you being a parent, how do you have the same perspective that your parents had when raising your own children?
Yes, absolutely. So my son's going to be 13, and I really try to use some of the tools that my parents used with me growing up. And if I'm even a fraction of a parent that they are, I will feel very successful.
And speaking of your professional side now, where do you serve?
I'm in Division 51, which is the county civil bench. And in that bench, what we do is we hear anything under 30,000 landlord tenant cases, as well as the small claims. I've been really busy right now with PIP cases and property damage cases.
And in one of the interviews that you gave during your campaign, you said something very impactful. And I'll read the quote for those that are watching, and perhaps you can comment on some of the things you meant by that quote. The quote reads, "Justice needs to be blind, but it need not be ignorant and deaf."
Right. So I love that quote, and I want you to think of the illusion with the Greek statue where they're wearing the blindfold. So essentially, it means that justice needs to be impartial and objective. You need to treat friends no differently than you would strangers, or rich people better than poor. The part with being ignorant and deaf mean you need to have an open ear and you have to apply the law.
How do you apply that quote as a presiding judge every day now?
Okay, so one thing I do, I have a lot of pro se clients, so I always try to ensure that there's due process and notice in these type of cases. In addition to that, letting people speak. So a lot of times when you get pro se litigants in front of you, they're nervous, they don't know what to do. So to try to create the courtroom so the decorum is calm and that you treat everybody with respect. And I think that really goes a long way. And if you also give them a little bit of tips with regard to courtroom etiquette, they really seem to respond to that.
Now, having been a presiding judge for quite some time, what are you looking forward to in your role as a judge?
Well, number one, I miss seeing everybody in person. But what I love about being a judge is that I get a pretty decent variety of cases. And I have some excellent lawyers that appear before me. I sometimes get novel arguments before me, which are interesting. So it's just working really with everyone from the litigants to my clerk, the court reporters. It's just, I'm a social person, even though I'm more shy and on the quiet side. I love to be around people.
And having a very busy caseload, how do you balance, I would say from what you've expressed to us, how do you balance or perhaps how do you maintain that work-life balance?
Yeah, this is something that I've really been trying to work on. I know Judge Tarlika was doing a seminar, I believe, with Mr. Mark Eiglish on mindfulness and meditation. So what I'm trying to do is turn off my electronics at 8 p.m. and not look at it. But it is so difficult because while we were in COVID, I feel like I was looking at e-orders all night, all day and all night. So I'm trying to, I think the electronics is the main thing that I need to get a break from. My goal, I hope I can do this, is I want to start lifting weights. I used to lift weights quite a few years ago and I stopped. So if I can get back into that, that's my goal. Check on me.
Yes. There's a story there. How did that begin, lifting weights?
When I was in high school, I was really, really skinny, and I had a role model of a bodybuilder. Her name was Gladys Portuguese, and she was from Puerto Rico, and she was just so strong. I really admired that, and so I started lifting weights then.
Well, if Gladys is watching this video at some point, yeah. It would be great to connect the two of you having a fan. Right. Wonderful. Well, we have made it to the lightning round. I hope you're excited for this set of questions next. So tell us, any pets?
I have a pit bull mix named Cleo, and she is a lamb in the body of a pit bull. And my little love, who I had for 14 years, his name was Medianoche. He was born at midnight. Sadly, he passed away early this year, but he was a major impact in my life. So maybe I'll get another dog soon, but right now I just have Cleo, and she's been wonderful. She was a rescue from animal control. I'm crazy about her.
Fantastic. Wow. Well, you already mentioned Salvador Dali as one of your favorite artists, but what about favorite type of music?
I love flamenco music. I also like punk music and alternative music. And when I was in high school, I was a huge fan of Menudo. And I was just laughing about that with my mom. We didn't have many places to get Spanish albums. So she used to take me to this little place on 441 in Hollywood to go get my Menudo magazines and the albums.
So if any of the members from Menudo are watching this video as well, we have another fan
Yeah.
that can reach out. Wonderful. And the last question in this section, is there something interesting that perhaps the audience watching us may not know about you?
Okay, I love comic books. I have a huge comic book collection, and I love watching people dressed in cosplay. So I like going to conventions. I'm a big fan of that.
Hopefully they open up back up soon so that you can
I know.
enjoy that. Fantastic. We've come to the very end of this interview, and at this time, Judge McCarthy, just wanted to turn it back to you. Perhaps any words of wisdom that you want to share with the audience watching this video.
Okay, I would say that never give up on your dreams, number one. And number two, that we can evolve professionally. So we might have one profession, but then we might evolve and want to do something else. So you might have one area of law that you specialize in, but keep an open mind and keep that door open, because you never know what's going to happen. I never would have dreamed that this could come true. Sometimes I still pinch myself and I look at myself and I'm like, this is just so amazing. I'm very, very grateful.
Thank you, Judge McCarthy. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Judge Kathleen McCarthy from the 17th Judicial Circuit. We're not done. Right here on this page, you're also going to have access to a written article about Judge McCarthy, explores some more details about her upbringing as well as her path to the bench. So join us and learn more about Judge McCarthy. Thank you so much for watching.